Hey everyone, this is Brian again. This is part 2 of the Saint Agnes mixing sessions. If anybody doesn't remember, the last session was just basically trying to get an understanding of what all the tracks were, since nothing was really labeled, nothing was organized, and then taking the 13-track drum session and doing a sub mix to get it down to about 7. I think it's 7 tracks if I remember right. And what we did is we ended up putting the upper and lower snare mics on one track. We blended the inner and outer kick mics onto one track. We blended the overheads, hi-hats, and ride cymbals onto 2 tracks. And then we left the individual tom mics, which was just 2 of those, upper and lower, alone. And we left the... I can't remember the name of the mic. It's a certain mic they were using as another overall kit mic to capture the whole kit that had a more compressed sound to it, but I left that one alone also. So in this session, the first thing I want to do is I want to check out to see if I'm going to be using the DI tracks of the bass and the keyboards, or if I want to use the tracks that were recorded via their cabinets and microphones. See which one sounds better. Also, I was thinking there might have been a DI track for the guitar, but there's not. So we're just going to take a quick look, see what's what, and just get an idea of what we want to use here. Starting the track back from the beginning. Let's see what it does. Alright, so this is a mic'd track. Let's see what it is. Drums don't sound bad for that being off in the distance. You get plenty of boom from the bass still and good snare pop. Okay, it's not the keyboard track, so it must be the bass track. Because that keyboard track is still... that keyboard's off in the distance in this track. Man. Alright, what's this one? Ugh. Well, obviously it's the bass track, but they must be running through some pedals. This is the DI track. I'm only saying that because the other instruments and the vocals are way off in the background compared to the other side. This one's got just a bit of a fatter sound to it. I think I like that one better than the other one. So I think I'm going to go with that one. We're going to leave the other one out altogether. We're going to cut out the DI track altogether and just make it the acoustically recorded track. Alright, so what's this one? That's the keyboard. Okay. That must be the DI track. And right now I'm telling you, I already like the mic'd track. Yeah, absolutely no bleed through on the other track, unlike the bass. And there's the guitar track. So anyway, we're going to use just the mic'd tracks. That's all we're using for the bass and the keyboards. I am not going to bother at this point with the DI'd tracks. So I'm going to set the bass and keyboards up along with the drum tracks we've already just done. So we're going to go ahead and range that. The bass is going to be sent to 8, the keyboards to 9, and the guitar will get switched to 10. So now I'm going to bring the drums back up, and then I'm going to bring up the rest of what we just put in there, the bass, the guitars, the keyboards. So first, start off with the drum track again. All right, well, there's the kick, and there's the snare. So then 3 and 4 is going to be probably the toms. And then 5 and 6, probably the overheads. Yeah, that's that weird mic they were using. I can't remember the name of it. Okay, those are the toms right there. 5 and 6 are going to be the toms, I'm sure. Yeah, because that sounds more like overheads there. Right now I'm just looking at setting some basic levels. So anyway, I'm still playing around with that. I'm actually listening to the stereo spread now. I want to make sure I've actually got this thing set up right. And I think I've got the pans reversed on this stuff. So let's switch that around. So if I remember right, the way the mics were set up, we're supposed to be hearing the drums from in front of the kit, not behind the kit. little more punch to the kick. Still, I don't know if I want to use that compressed mic yet. All right, so we've got, looks like 5 tracks. No, 1, 2, 3, 6 tracks. We got 6 tracks open, maybe 7 if I don't want to use that one overhead compressed mic. So the vocals, I believe, take up 4 channels, and then that should leave us 2 channels for the room mics should I want to use them. So let's go ahead and get the vocal mics, the vocal tracks set up onto their own channels here, and then get them organized. Let's go find what they are.
You move like a ghost. You move like a ghost across the room. You
okay,
move
one
like
is
a ghost, but I
one's
don't
in
see
15.
You move.
You move like a ghost. You move like a ghost. But I don't see you. I hear you breathing. I hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking.
Those 2 are probably room mics there.
You go to the touch. You go to the touch inside the moon. You go to the touch when I go to catch you. I fall right through you.
I you so cruel.
I go to catch you. I fall right through
You. I you so cruel.
Okay, well, there's vocals on 5 and 6 and 15. I'm going to do 5 to 11, 6 to 12, and 15 I can put on 13 just so they're right side by side. And then I'll keep looking for some others, see what we got.
You really don't have to be. You really don't have to be. You're so busy making enemies.
I hear you. 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 I hear you.
Okay, that's just a separate track right there.
You move like a ghost. Move like a ghost across the room.
Okay, so the male vocalist is using two different mics. Probably just for some kind of effect. One mic he's using comes in just on occasion now on channel 11. And then the main mic that he's using is coming in on channel 12.
You move like a ghost, but I don't see you. I hear you move.
You move like a ghost. Move like a ghost across the room.
You move like a ghost, but I don't see you. I hear you breathing. I hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking. 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 I hear your bones creaking.
All right, well, after searching for another set of vocals, there are none. So there's just the three vocals that I put down there. So now all I got to do at this point is just move the room mics over, the ones that were probably near the back of the club or at least some ways away from the stage. And then this thing should be completely organized and done. Let me check for the room mics here. I think they're just on channels 1 and 2 on the second set of virtual tracks. Yeah. Yeah, that's them. So let's go ahead and see what adding the room mics in may do to this. I think I need to change their orientation so they're panned differently. Because now I want everything to come out the same sides when it comes to like all the stereo kind of stuff from the drums. You know, the way the hi-hat's panned, the way the cymbals are panned, the toms are panned, so forth.
You move like a ghost. You move like a ghost across the room. You move like a ghost, but I don't see you. I hear you move. You move like a ghost. You move like a ghost across the room. You move like a ghost, but I don't see you. I hear you breathing. I hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking.
Okay, having the room mics left in there, it really does give this thing the live sound, the live feel, because you get that ambience from the room in the rest of the tracks that they're kind of missing because everything's pretty dry with everything being fairly close mic'd, with the exception of course, the overhead drums, things like that. At this moment, I think I'll leave them out. I think I'll leave them out of the mix and deal with it, or just try it out later after I get a nice mix of what everything sounds like, at least the way I like it, without them. And then I'll pull them in, and maybe I'll add them to it and make them fit with some EQ adjustment, maybe some dynamics processing, or maybe I'll just make a completely different kind of mix, you know, more of a cleaned up studio kind of mix to a live type of mix. At this point, though, I'm thinking I got to do something about those vocals. So what we'll do on the next part, on part 3, coming out, I'll put it out maybe later next week or so, is I'm going to run these things through an auto-tune just because there's so much of it that's just out. And I'm going to set up, it's a hardware auto-tune. It's an Antares, however you pronounce it, auto-tune that's actually built into a Tascam vocal processor. And I'll work on getting it set up so these things are in tune. I don't know if this song is actually in a perfect key or if I'm going to have to detune things on the auto-tunes to make it work. But we'll get this thing to where it's sounding right. Instead of just letting it go through auto-tune and just processing it that way, I'm actually going to print that and then replace it on here, just because when everything's said and done, when I go to do the final mix for this particular one, we've been able to bust down or group down via submixing a song that was recorded with 23 tracks, and then if we say that the overheads were both stereo tracks apiece, which they were, then you can add another 2 tracks there. So 25 tracks, brought them down to just 15 tracks to work with by submixing and grouping things together. I think I'm going to wrap this session up for this part, and we'll get back to this again within about a week or so.